It's good. I gotta figure out what else to do.
Make sure you don't look bad. You don't look bad. All of y'all always look so good.
We're starting. 10 minutes. Wait, what? We'll wait for you. I don't know. I mean, I can just run to my car. Yeah. I really love yeah, I know.
Did you go out to the farm Sunday? Did you go out to our place? Planted some potatoes.
I saw you want to show me a video.
No,
You sent one of your classes.
you don't have to do it.
But he made it real situation. I love I mean, do y'all have a presentation or are you just gonna? Oh, you do? Okay.
It's like, okay. I was just gonna do this.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't get to see your video next time. I did get to see your video. Well, this year it's going to be a lot of it. I will. Yeah, while we're doing sound tests.
No, this is the first time we got.
Yeah, our school just started talking about it, and I had no plans in 6 hours. Like, I think about
Which Zoom?
Well, the thing is, you don't have to do it. It'll get done. Just don't count every one.
Oh. I think it's connected to somebody
Yeah.
somewhere.
Oh, I'm sorry. So she had, so what she's doing now is
You should just be able to push join.
Okay, join.
In theory.
You ever go to school? No. Like some kids, like,
Yeah.
It was like,
yeah. But
valley school.
yeah. Some people in colder temperatures they'll wrap.
No, that's what I do.
That was hard to wrap in the sun.
Sometimes I left it on. So
That's a good deal.
no, I started to
Usually
And then you should be able to share your screen from there. Awesome.
Now we live in all things.
Yeah, I would just join with computer audio.
Where you from? Oh. Yeah. No, it was. Oh, you actually? Yeah. Oh, wow. It's just like I look like I would. And I don't know if anybody looks like they go into it. It's just like, it's kind of our rival. The math and science school. You know, Rod.
Nailed it.
Yeah. Ready to go?
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Steel Center. I'm Jamie Dow, professor of philosophy and director of the Steel Center. And this is the Steel Center afternoon discussion every Wednesday. And we are pleased to welcome the Muslim Student Association. And for us, you're the president of the Muslim
Co-president.
Co-president. Youssef is the other president.
Yes.
Okay. Of the Muslim Student Association. And they're going to be talking about Ramadan, which starts on Monday. Is that right?
Yeah, it starts Sunday night, but we
Sunday
start
night?
fasting Monday.
For the holy month of Ramadan, and we're very grateful that they're here to talk about their tradition. And so let's give them a warm welcome.
So again, thank you for the introduction. My name is Firas and I'm the co-president of the MSA. Unfortunately, Yusuf couldn't be here. He's probably going to be here a little bit later. And we also have other members of the MSA like scattered everywhere. We have Dima, Yusuf, Zed, Eddie, a lot of people here as well. And really, this is meant to be like, from my impression, like a discussion. I have like a little short presentation about what Ramadan is and like my personal experiences, and then the MSA is going to share their experiences, and then really questions, thoughts, opinions, whatever everybody feels like doing. So yeah. So what is Ramadan? So Ramadan is a holy month observed by Muslims all around the world and by non-Muslims, just doesn't have to be Muslims. It's the 9th month of the Islamic lunar calendar called the Hijri calendar. And in this calendar, there's still 12 months, but it's based on the lunar sightings and the moon. So I think the moon changes every like 29, around 30 days. And that signals the next month. And during this month, there's a lot of fasting, there's a lot of prayer, there's a lot of reflection, and a lot of community. Not just for Muslims, but for everybody around the world. So when does it start and when does it end? So this year, I believe, we still don't know for sure, but we think that it's going to be March 10th, Sunday, I think. And that is when like the night, that's when we start preparing for Ramadan. We don't fast that day. It's just that night is when it starts. And then the next day is when we start fasting. And yeah, the beginning and the end of Ramadan are determined by the sighting of the new moon following the Islamic lunar calendar. So the start of the Ramadan is when we see the crescent moon. And similarly, the end of Ramadan is also when we see the crescent moon. And that day after is called Eid al-Fitr, and it's a Muslim holiday for like breaking your fast, celebrating the end of Ramadan. And over here you can see like a picture of the crescent moon. So why do we fast? There's a lot of reasons why we fast, and these are just a couple of them. So one of them is for spiritual growth. It encourages self-discipline, self-control, and spiritual reflection. A lot of people say that like if you conquer hunger, then you can conquer a lot of different things, because controlling your hunger is a very difficult thing. And another reason why we fast is for empathy, because we understand that a lot of people are not as fortunate as us to have food the way that we do. And so their fasting, the way that we fast in Ramadan, is every day for them. And so this is a way for us to perspective take, to put ourselves in their position and to sympathize with their struggles. It also has a lot of physical and psychological benefits. The psychological, I kind of mentioned it briefly, the self-discipline, self-control, but also physical, like it's kind of like detoxing your body, cleansing your body from impurities. And you hear about this a lot when people do intermittent fasting. Like it's kind of the same benefits as intermittent fasting. It's just those same health benefits. And also submission to the will of God. in Islam, obedience and submission to God and living a righteous life the way that we know how to, the best that we can. And Ramadan is not just all about fasting. Fasting is a really big part of it, but it's also important because it provides an opportunity for non-Muslims to learn about Islamic values, our practices, our traditions, even beyond the month of Ramadan. We try to, practice what we practice in Ramadan, but also after. And it promotes a sense of community among Muslims and non-Muslims. Personally, a lot of the people at like the Hendricks MSA, I didn't know them until we started doing Ramadan iftars and we grew closer together. And I feel like we're all just like a family now. And yeah, I got closer to them through Ramadan. And also my friends who aren't Muslim, we also got closer to Ramadan because they joined us for iftar and they sat down and we shared stories and all of that good stuff. It also encourages healthier eating habits and promoting mindfulness about food consumption. Going back to that, like health benefits, we shouldn't. Me personally, as soon as I get that meal in Ramadan, I get full super quickly, and so it just kind of gives you a sense of like how much you really should be eating, or if you're full, maybe you should just stop eating. Don't just eat a lot. Let me go back. And it encourages charity or zakat, which is one of the 5 pillars of Islam. And with zakat, we try to give back to the community, whether that's through money, whether that's through giving food, whether that's through community service. I have an example over here when back in Amman, Jordan, I used to volunteer for the United Nations, and we hosted daily iftars in Ramadan for refugees and orphans who didn't have food or they were just part of that organization. And we also did like festivals, and like I dressed up as a clown for one of these, and it was just a fun experience. So I want to make it clear that everybody has their own different experience with Ramadan, even Muslims and non-Muslims. For example, we all wake up at different times. We all have different classes. We're all in different situations. And there's this thing called suhoor, where Muslims usually wake up a little bit before sunrise. I also should say this. So our fasting period is from sunrise to sunset. We can't eat or drink or do or consume anything for our physical needs during the daylight. After sunset, we can eat, we can do whatever. But a lot of people wake up right before sunrise and eat suhoor, which is like the meal before you start fasting. Me personally, I don't do that. I just sleep and wake up and I only eat once. And a lot of other people, they can't do that. They need that meal to sustain like energy levels throughout the day. I might feel a little bit groggy throughout the day, so I'm sorry if you guys see me around campus and I'm groggy, but I don't like waking up just to eat and then go back to sleep. But other people do that, and so that's why it's important to understand that everybody has their own different experience. So my personal experience, here are just some pictures. I have my family and Amman. This was a fast-a-thon event that we had last year, which is also going to be this year. I'll talk about it a little bit later. And just a lot of the community brings food together, and this is also my family. We're just all getting together, talking, sharing stories, all the good stuff. And so now I want to open it up to the MSA members who want to share their own experiences with Ramadan and what it means to them. Because I kind of talked a little bit about mine, but I want to open it to them.
Okay. So I started like fasting, like practicing when I was probably like 7 or so. I think my first like full Ramadan was when I was like 8, which to give some context, you only have to start fasting once you like hit puberty. But I know a lot of people like me like kind of start before, just I don't know, you see like your family doing it and then you're like, I want to do it too. And yeah, I don't know, it's just it was harder when you're little, but it just kind of like becomes like more natural. It's like I don't know, like there's days where you're definitely like, oh, I starving, I want to eat right now. But like sometimes it's like awkward whenever like your friends want to like go to like a coffee shop and you're like, I'll come with you, but I can't like get anything. This, I guess we didn't mention this, but there's like people who are exempt from fasting sometimes. So when you're a girl, you're on your period, you don't have to fast. So that's like a nice little break. So kind of thing, like if you see a girl eating during Ramadan, don't say anything. But yeah, so it's always nice, and just like me and my bestie Sophia, we like go to like the mosque together, like the masjid, and we like go to like Tarawih, which is like the prayer at night, and we like do activities and stuff. So it's like nice, you like feel like closer to everyone too. And everyone's like pretty active and like the community, and then you have Eid to look forward to, and
Can y'all hear me all right? I'm Zaid, the co-treasurer of the MSA. So for me, Ramadan has always been my favorite time of the year, mainly because like I'm usually happiest during Ramadan. Like I know this sounds like a little cheesy, but I'm happiest whenever like I am being the best Muslim I can be. Like being spiritually and religiously like heightened, it really brings like it really helps with my mental state as well as my psychological and emotional well-being. Um, and just like Dima and like several other Muslims here, I started fasting when I was like 7, 8-ish. Usually when I was younger, I used to like half fast. Like my parents would like tell me to like fast maybe half the day, and then like I could eat whatever after that. But then obviously as I grew older, I started doing it for myself. Um, and Ramadan, especially, like it really emphasizes the community aspect of it, and so this was my first time. Like, so usually I wake up a little bit before sunrise to like eat a little meal. And this past Ramadan was like the first time I did Ramadan like away from my family, and just waking up in the middle of the night with and like not having my parents there and my family there, it was just really depressing. So it just made me really put into perspective like how important community was to like happiness during Ramadan. But yeah, the entire month of being able to like religiously and spiritually like detox yourself, it really does help with my mental state especially. So that's my experience.
Hi, hello everyone. My name is EQ. Well, I'm speaking on the perspective of non-Muslim. Last year, I did try on the day of the fastathon. We had a challenge, not a challenge, but everyone before we go to the fastathon meal, all of us try to fast, and I did fast also. And during that time of the month, it was before one of my orders course exam, which I shall not mention what class that is. Sorry to repeat. And then as I was like, I was prepping for this exam, which is gonna come in like 1 or 2 days. And man, I've always eaten 3 meals. I'm very privileged to get to eat every meal all my life, and not eating that breakfast and lunch was very difficult. And I thought I was gonna faint at some point. It's very hard, but I did came through, and then joined the fast one without eating, and fasted. So I was very happy, and then it really put into perspective of not everyone on this world gets to eat 3 meals. It makes me very conscious that dang, have one rice piece. I just have one grain of rice. Not everyone can enjoy that, so might as well just clean the plate. Right? Yeah, that's my experience.
Muslim Student Association.
I'll share.
Yeah, Sophia.
I'm Sophia. I'm first year MSA member and student at Hendrix. So my experience with Ramadan, I like to think a lot with my family. I'm a little family of 3, so during Ramadan, we're in the kitchen all the time, like kind of preparing for food and just like, getting ready to just cook, plan out like what we're gonna eat for iftar, which is the meal that you break your fast with. And my mom, like I'm Pakistani, so we'd be cooking like all day. The house would smell like good food, and like you'd be like in your room, just like aroma everywhere. You're like, okay, like we're gonna break your fast like that. But like Zaid was saying, like his first year, he was just like here, like you broke your fast for that family. So that's something that I hope is not testing for me, but I'm definitely looking forward to like the cooking aspect and definitely getting closer.
Yeah, just going back off that, like this, the smell of the food. My TikTok just starts all becoming food. Like it just food on food on food. So I try to get off of TikTok. And sometimes I actually like just like look at the chicken as you go by. But yeah, that's just yeah, like what is it called? Mukbang? Oh, like when people just eat a whole bunch of food and you hear this, yeah. But yeah, so that's if anybody else wants to share, this is open to everybody.
I can share.
Yeah.
More in the faculty side, I guess. I don't know if it makes any difference, but I also grew up Muslim in Palestine, in the south of the Israeli-Palestinian region. And I am not a religious person anymore, but Ramadan has always been more about culture to me than religious practices. And just like a lot of things in the Western context here in the US, where people celebrate Christmas, but they're not necessarily religious, that's kind of the relationship that I have with Ramadan. So I actually love it and I enjoy it. I don't really fast much anymore, but I do if I'm around family. So to emphasize the concept of community, if I'm around my family, I normally love it just because I'm able to actually do it around people. But if I'm by myself, I usually normally don't really do it. So with that being said, if you think you're physically unable to do it, and if it sounds like so much torture, it's actually really not as bad, especially after you do it for a couple of days. Starting the third day, especially if you're someone who consumes a lot of caffeine, from that day on, once your body kind of forgets about caffeine, you're like, okay, we can do this. And by day 28 or 29, you're like freaking exhausted and over it. But you're also like telling yourself, okay, we're almost done. So yeah, so I enjoyed it for a lot of reasons, and also the food. And being the non-fasting family member, because everybody else in my family did fast, I always joke around it. I think I mentioned it last year in Fastathon, but my mom has me always taste the food before breaking the fast. Even though you actually, the person cooking, from what I know, I don't know if you all would agree with this, but we were told, at least in the Palestinian context, where the person cooks can actually make mild tastings of the food, just to make, not like actually inhale it, just on the tongue and spit it out, just to make sure, salt levels or whatnot levels, you can do that. Also, just to add to the categories of people that Dima started listing about who cannot, who is exempt from fasting, I guess, that includes if you get sick, no matter what age you are. If you do kind of think you're gonna faint or whatever is gonna happen to your body, if you get nauseous or anything, you can absolutely break your fast. So it's not just something that do it or die, you don't have to do it. Besides the menstrual cycle, if you're an elderly person, you can also do it. If you're capable financially, as a replacement to that exempt from fasting, you should actually give extra money for the communities in need, as a way to kind of, you're excused from fasting physically, but if you have the money to do it, you're actually required and expected to give a certain amount of money. So yeah, and I think definitely desserts become a wild scene in most Muslim cultures from what I've seen. And I can list many of them, and I think I mastered making a few. But yeah, desserts are a big deal. And also think about, kind of to add to some of the points that we're mentioning here, after you haven't eaten for 10, 12, sometimes 16 hours, and you're looking at the food, the way you actually perceive it is not the same as when it's an hour or two after you had just a full lunch in the cafeteria. It's an absolutely different relationship with food. So I think that's pretty weird and bizarre in some ways, but the idea that some people think it's just a torture and they cannot actually physically do it, there are a lot of ways that you can work around it, and it is accommodating more than not. in so many ways because there's that stigma that it's just like, it sounds like it's too harsh. But actually, our human bodies are more capable of doing things that we can give them credit for. And that is definitely one of those things. So just kind of to add to the points that were mentioned here.
Also, I'd like to add on to something that Dr. Izzet said. So, like, he started talking about like the amount of sweets that come up in Ramadan, and contrary to like the belief that you lose a lot of weight in Ramadan, no, most of the time we actually gain weight from like, because usually the aunties, they usually bring out like the good food, the good desserts, like they go crazy during this month, and that's why like we actually gain weight as opposed to losing it.
And if you work out, some people who are dedicated to the gym, which back in my days, I was a gym fanatic. So a lot of Muslims actually kind of restructure their daily routine with exercise around that as well. And some people, the way they do it is they, instead of eating a full meal once they break their fast, they eat a very small meal, wait an hour after they have hydrated, and maybe even 2 hours, then they kind of work out. And of course, it would be a nighttime workout, and then they eat even more after they have worked out. So that is also something that a lot of people do. A lot of people go for walks right before they are about to break their fast. So that is kind of, because it's an easy kind of relaxed cardio that many people, as long as you're healthy, you can actually do. So, you know, that's another thing that a lot of people, as you know, I think it's kind of, it adds to the community thing where we're gonna walk together. Do you want to join and like just go down the street and, you know, just say hi to everyone? So yeah.
Now this is open to anybody like with any questions, thoughts, opinions.
Yeah.
Me.
Yeah.
Hi.
Sorry.
I would really like to know, just from a faculty perspective, like what would you like faculty to know, or what are ways in which faculty can really support our students who are practicing fasting during Ramadan, or just practicing in other ways of practicing Ramadan?
Okay, I'll give an example. So I like to say I'm a pretty like good student when it comes to like going to class every time. But I remember one time in particular, I don't know, I think it was like something I ate, and I also had like coffee after like breaking my fast. So I could not sleep, and I slept at like 6 a.m. And so I woke up like halfway like through my like class that I had, and I like emailed my professor. I was like, oh my god, I'm so sorry. Like, I think it was like the beginning of like Ramadan, so my like, you know, I was still like adjusting. I think, and you know, it was Dr. Jager, so he was very very kind, and you know, very like, you know, it's okay, like I understand. So I would just say like being like kind when like little things like that happen, because yeah, just being accommodating.
Because we try not to abuse it, like, oh, we're gonna miss class just because we're fasting and we have that excuse. Like, obviously, I don't try to abuse it. I'm sure other people do, not in MS Hendricks MSA, but I'm sure like other people, like sometimes they may make that excuse, but a lot of the times we are actually like extremely tired, or like just when you're hungry, you're not thinking right, and so we get angry, we get like the hungry, and then we also like that's why you like before you take a big exam, a lot of people say like eat a protein something, but we can't do that. So like our mind isn't always there, but we try to be, and we try not to abuse that, and yeah.
Can I add to that in response to the same question? I'm gonna probably be sending some similar email the same way I did last year to the whole campus community. But just to kind of answer this question to the people here now, I mean, faculty can definitely just announce it in class as an acknowledgement that I'm aware that this month is starting, and even if you don't tell me whether you're Muslim or not, or whether you fast or not, I'm willing to accommodate. So if you don't feel comfortable approaching me, I'm letting you know in advance as a student in this class who does fast, I'm gonna be willing to work with whatever your needs are. And just maybe, you know, be more flexible with extensions. I would say, yeah, so like being more open to communicate and maybe even meet with students outside of the normal times you're available to them. That could also probably be helpful as well.
And basically to add on to what Dr. Izzet was saying, I was also gonna say that, being more lenient with especially like extensions or giving your students the option of that it would mean a lot. Like I personally, Dr. Gron, she came up to me like at the beginning of Ramadan and she basically told me that, hey, if you need an extension, just tell me. And like I told her that personally for me, it won't be that much of a problem. Like I personally never took those extensions, but it does mean a lot that you offer to be lenient with us during this month.
Thank you all so much.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, what does Ramadan look like for people who work like labor-intensive jobs where like drinking and eating are kind of a necessity?
That's tough. I mean, like it all comes to that like self-discipline, like that self-control. And it's all about that perspective taking because we understand, like, for example, we as students here at Hendrix, we have it much easier than a lot of other people. Whether that's in America or around the world, we have it way easier. Like I'm very thankful that we can just, eat and that's readily available to us. But a lot of people, they don't have that option. And so it is kind of like EQ said, it is kind of like a challenge. Like people in those jobs, they understand that they're in a difficult situation, but it's up to them to decide how difficult is it going to be for them to uphold like their tradition, their values, their morals in the month of Ramadan. And especially like you said, it's very hard, especially for those people. But I feel like those people who work those jobs, they kind of have to empathize with people who are in a similar situation as well.
I'd actually like to add to that a little bit too. Before I went to college, I used to work in nursing, which is not the most labor-intensive job there is. It's definitely one that normally you try to drink a lot of water, eat a lot of snacks throughout it. And there's a lot of Muslim athletes that have weighed in on this too, because that's particularly a job that by fasting, they're kind of jeopardizing their performance, and their entire team gets thrown into that. And basically, how I felt, and also how I've heard with athletes and other labor-intensive jobs talk about it, is that your two things is you want to have a plan. So you want to be really strategic about like when you're eating and things like that. So let's say you're clocking in about 6:15 in the morning, and then depending on the time of the year, you can probably have suhoor like around 4 a.m. So you're going to be having something with a lot of protein in it. You're going to be drinking a very deliberate amount of water. And then you also see a lot of those people, they'll try to like sleep in later in the day or just make sure they're getting at least 3 meals. Because if you have like a meal around 7 p.m. when the sun goes down, and then you have another one at like 11, and then you go to sleep, and you wake up about 4 a.m. and you have a meal, you're still getting those 3 meals spaced, and you're still getting that fuel. And if you get the hydration in at the point that you can drink, it's doable. It just requires you to be really deliberate. And I think that's part of the practice that even if something seems impossible, like you're talking about, oh, not drinking while the sun is up, if it's something that you really have that religious commitment to and that spiritual commitment to, you can find ways to make it happen. And that's an attitude that I think Ramadan tries to like instill, that if something is important to you, you can find creative solutions and you can work around and you can make those accommodations. And then you also can like ask for accommodations, which is something that Muslims are used to having to do year round, like making those accommodations, especially since we're supposed to pray 5 times a day outside of Ramadan, just usually. So there are 5 points of the day where you stop and you pray. And I don't know if you've seen like videos or pictures of Muslims praying, but it's requiring like you spread a mat down, you cover your hair. It only takes 5 minutes, but it is a very deliberate process. So speaking for myself, I feel like a lot of times it's hard to ask for those accommodations if a class is like in the middle of a time when you need to pray or when you're at work. Maybe you have a boss who's like, I don't have an issue with Muslims, but I don't really want people praying at the job. It doesn't look professional. So Ramadan forces you to advocate for yourself and make deliberate decisions when you're in those labor-intensive jobs that empowers you to ask for and create those accommodations year round. And there are like physical laborers who have said the same thing. And just like if you are strategic about it, you can make it happen.
And just briefly to add on to that as well, Ramadan is a month, and a lot of people say like it takes 30 days to create like good habits. And so we try to like keep those same habits that we build in Ramadan throughout, not just in Ramadan, but even after Ramadan. Like we don't just want to try to be the best that we can in Ramadan, but continue it after.
Including the biggest one is quitting smoking.
Yeah.
A lot of people have actually managed to quit smoking that way because you can't really smoke cigarettes, I mean, during the fasting hours. But just to add to both of these comments to that question, if you're in a Muslim country or a Muslim practicing community, most of the time the governments on managing these populations actually have policies that kind of reduce the number of hours across most fields unless it's essential. So in some ways, there are areas that grow more capitalistic, I guess, but others kind of slow down their productivity. So kind of, I guess, with nursing would, of course, would be an essential one. But my K-12 education was entirely, if I was in school from 8 a.m. till 2 or 3 p.m. on a normal day, in Ramadan, I was usually at home before 1 p.m., sometimes by noon. So that is kind of like, it just shows you how much of a complete societal shift. But a lot of these changes are possible only because the full community is doing it. So that does happen. But in some ways, I mean, when we think about diversity and inclusion and how a pluralistic society is a good and wonderful thing to have, kind of like what Kudusia was saying, if you have people who are understanding and can show compassion, usually if the staff, whatever the workplace is, if it's a group of people who are diverse, they can be smart enough to say, well, we can accommodate this person in whatever needs they need. And if that means working a bit less, they can do it. A lot of people also in a lot of the Arabic, I guess the Arab countries in the Middle East and North Africa that I'm more familiar with, they literally also just cancel a lot of projects that are, for instance, say construction on the roads, that is something that would require people to be in the sun all day. So, which in some ways, when you think about it, that's a very anti-capitalistic thing, right? Like, it's like, also, how frequently do we get to connect with our bodies this way? It's something that, besides the spiritual, religious, whatever beliefs that we may have behind it, like when we think about living in this lifestyle that we're living, like really fasting 16 hours will literally force you to slow down and think and actually reflect and be in more connection with your body than any other spiritual activity I have been exposed to. So in that way, it's also kind of, it's more powerful as literally a tool to fight those power structures that are around us. And not to go political scientist, sociology professor here, but think about it this way, right? Like this is really also a wonderful thing too, in some ways. So yeah.
I also wanted to share from
Yeah, you mentioned prayers. Do the prayers change during Ramadan? Is there specific prayers that are said, and how does it?
Yeah.
I mean, I was just gonna say that in Ramadan, like there's only one extra prayer, but by all accounts, it is optional, but it's heavily encouraged that you do pray. Like for example, outside of Ramadan, we have 5 prayers, and with each of these, well, most of these 5 prayers, there are optional prayers that go along with them. But then in Ramadan, there's like this extra one after the final one. It can range anywhere between like 2 prayer cycles to 16, depending on like how long your recitations are, etc. But for the most part, prayer times don't exactly change during Ramadan unless if there's things like daylight savings, but that's just outside of religion. But besides that, prayer times usually stay the same.
So we have the 5, which is Fajr, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha. That stays the same. In Ramadan, you still have those 5, but then you have Taraweeh, and that's like the night prayer. And a lot of the time, sometimes at the mosque, they would stay the whole night up until sunrise, just praying. And then, yeah, it would just be like something kind of like that.
Yeah, I wanted to also going back to Zach's question. Oh, okay, sorry. Some people like have to fast way longer because just depending on where they live. I think I saw a video somewhere like this one country they have to fast 23 hours
Yeah.
a day. So definitely some people have it easier than others. Like I think some countries it's maybe like 8 hours. Ours is like 12 in America usually. So yeah.
Garcia, were you gonna say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to share my experience a little bit too. My name's Priscilla. I'm a member of the Student Association. This is my first year at Hendrix. I'm a non-traditional student. So I feel like what all of us have been trying to convey is a lot of people hear month of fasting and they think it's like a negative thing, it's a difficult thing, you know, it's a struggle and a sacrifice. And that's always felt so strange for Muslims to hear that, just because for us, it's honestly like the time of year that we cherish the most. Like we start countdowns, we're like, oh, only, you know, one more month to go on. Every single year, without fail, every single year, we have the same conversation about, can you believe it's going to be Ramadan in 3 months? Can you believe it's going to be Ramadan in 2 months? Can you believe it's going to be Ramadan in 1 month? And then when it comes, we're like, wow, wait, it's Ramadan? I didn't know that. And then when Ramadan starts, like immediately the night before, people will gather in groups and they'll go to like the highest point in the area and we will physically look for the moon, even though we like have telescopes and like we have like members of the mosque who already went and looked. It's still like a family thing. Like my parents would drive up a mountain and they would put us on the roof of the minivan. We would like sit there and we'd eat and we'd point at the moon. There was like a children's song that we would sing about the Ramadan moon. So my brothers and I would like throwing crackers at each other and looking for the moon. And then it'd be exciting because we get to stay up late. And then during Ramadan, actually the local mosque or masjid, they hold dinner every single night. So every single night for the entire month, there's free dinner, and it's just the members of the community who pitch in together and they pay for it. So you show up before the sun sets, and there's like these keeper rolls that we set out on the carpet. Everybody sits on the ground together, which is such a big thing in the Muslim community of like sitting on the ground, because we have this theme of equalizing that like no matter what your differences are, no matter where you come from, no matter who you are, we're all sitting. And there's a phrase in the masjid too called shoulder to shoulder. So the sheikh will be like shoulder to shoulder when we're praying. The idea is we're all lined up, shoulder to shoulder, we're the same. It's like unity, community. So we're having every single day. You're going to the masjid and you're having dinner with your entire community. And I'm also an immigrant. I came here when I was younger, so I've been in America for a while, but I definitely do remember what Ramadan was like in my country and in countries that have a lot of Muslims. I'm from the Caribbean, so it's not necessarily a Muslim country, but it is a smaller place, so the communities are closer. So Ramadan was like the way Christmas is in America, where you like go to the mall and you put Christmas decorations up. Everybody talks about Christmas and you get time off for Christmas. In Muslim countries, Ramadan is like that, like we were talking about a little bit. Like you go to the store and there's like special deals, there's sales, there's decorations, that kind of thing. And then when you come to America, it's really different because unless you come to like a program like this, you don't hear about Ramadan, you don't see Ramadan. You know, it's not like mainstream. It's not like really on the radar. So there's definitely this warning for that when you come to a country like America. But what that does create is that in America, Muslim communities tend to be more tightly knit. So in my country, I feel like it was like families that gathered, like families tend to get together, and then in Ramadan, like strangers become your family. Just like Yusuf was saying, sorry, they're also saying, so this Yusuf being here. I'll have to deal with him later why he's not here. But just like they're also saying that like the MSA became his family. That's something a lot of people face when they go to college or when they get married and they move away from their family. Because you can't really go home for an entire month. So it's not like how you can go home for Christmas or for Eid. So eventually at some point in your life, you do start having to spend these holidays alone. And you do start looking different. And that transition, which happens around the time of college, can be difficult for a lot of people. It's also a time that a lot of people who are Muslim or who are raised in Muslim communities might have feelings of depression or displacement that can be a little controversial for them to talk about, just because for us it's such a blessed, wonderful, happy, celebratory time. It's also the time we try to be the best Muslims that we are. So a lot of times people who don't feel like they're Muslims, good Muslims something in quotation because that's not really something quantifiable, but people who feel like they don't have a spot in the community anymore might start to feel sad and might start to like withdraw from the community. That's also a challenge for like queer Muslims or just like Muslims of specific ethnicities who are not like largely populated in America. So in addition to being a time of celebrating, it can also be a difficult time for some people. So that's always a good thing to keep in mind, like our interactions and how we deal with people. So you know, it's just this time that we celebrate community and food, and a lot of us have really fond memories of our childhood. I remember that, you know, I had this entire childhood of spending Ramadan with my siblings, like countless memories. Any Muslim in here has countless memories. Like we were talking about the suhoor, where you would wake up for, that's a really, really early morning meal where you wake up before the sun rises to eat. So my brothers, they were all really grouchy because I was in charge of waking them up for support. So I would like kick the bedroom door open every single morning and I would sing a song. I would be like, wake, wake, apple baby. And they would get so mad at me. They would like jump out of the bunk bed and they would try to like run after me downstairs and I would like escape them into the kitchen. And then my mom would be like, stop fighting, it's Ramadan. And then I'd be like, I don't know why they're fighting with me in Ramadan, knowing that I went in there. So now, even though we're all grown up and things like that, I'll still text them and I'll be like, wakey, apple cookie. For specific foods that my mom would only make in Ramadan, or just like memories that we have from around that time. Like she was talking about like smells, or we have so many traditions. We also have a lot of memes now. That's like a separate thing in the last couple of years. There's like full-on memes specific to Ramadan. There was this one chant, he does like questions and answers. So if you have like a religious question, you can ask the religious leader and he'll tell you. There was this one guy, you see everybody's laughing because they know what I'm talking about. There's this one guy, he calls in. Because if you forget that you're fasting, that's something that happens, especially if you're the person who carries a water bottle around, if you like drink from your water bottle by accident. They say that's a blessing from Allah, it's a blessing from God, like you don't have to worry about it. It doesn't break the fast if you eat by accident. So this one guy, he like called in and he asked the chef, he's like, chef, does anybody remember the exact words?
It's like a hot dog fell in his mouth by accident.
No, it was like a shawarma, like 3 slices of apple, like 2 water bottles. Is my fast still good?
He's like 2 liters of water fell in my mouth or something like that. He's like, my fast okay? You should have seen the chef's face. This is on video. He's like, why are you wasting my time with this? Are you? He said you ate that on delivery. Or there's another one, we'll say the Ramadan, which means like in Ramadan, and it's like the incredulous phase. So it started off with like, you know, because you're supposed to be your kindest, best self in Ramadan. So if you do something that doesn't reflect that, somebody could be like, in Ramadan, you're behaving in Ramadan. But I feel like Gen Z Muslims have kind of run with it. So we'll say something like, can you believe that we got a pop quiz today? The Ramadan pop quizzes. So there's this whole running culture that has been changing with American Muslims that isn't like, it's fluctuating, it's growing, and it's up to us to like carry on those traditions and cultures. Each of us have our own feelings about it. We're forming our own communities when we're displaced from our communities. American Ramadan is going to look different than the Ramadan we might go from back home. I mean, the next generation's Ramadan is going to look different. And I generally feel like if I had to communicate one thing, it's that it's a time of like celebration and happiness for us, and we feel the same way about it that other people do about their holidays. We have the same like happiness and traditions and jokes and greeting cards and food. And I think a lot of Muslims just want our holidays to be viewed with the same level of importance and to have the same opportunities to share them that other people do in America that might be more for majority.
Justin, thank you for this very long speech. Could say I appreciated it. And just to add to the memes discussion, another one is what you all started with, which is about when it starts. And because of the whole crescent moon situation, and because we have to wait until we actually see and observe the moon, we have to decide literally a night or two before it actually starts. So there is a whole genre of memes that makes fun of the fact that we have so much technology, we have so much ability to observe all those planets, but we still stick to the old school ways. And it's just kind of like, there's a lot of meme culture about that. And then I was gonna say the other kind of thing that cultural traditions, I guess, at least in the Arabic speaking world, if you're less of an ideal Muslim, which is sometimes kind of defeats the purpose of Ramadan, a lot the pop culture scene grows wild as well because people find themselves staying awake at night. So they do need entertainment, which means they watch TV shows. A lot of these TV shows actually are 30 episodes exactly, so they're produced this way beforehand. And a lot of people, the popular ones, you find sometimes literally tens of people just in front of one TV watching it all together. So again, supposedly you're not supposed to be watching these, you know, they tend to be more on the secular side of things. They're not as religious, but definitely pop culture wise, TV, that's usually the cycle, the annual cycle of pop culture around, at least again, I don't know about other Muslim countries, but I do know that is the case in the Arabic speaking world. So this is kind of another thing that really happens. Some of these TV shows are actually now on Netflix, obviously from the previous Ramadan, but they're all, if you look through them, you can see they're all 30 episodes, just to match the month. So.
More questions?
I want to hear about food details. I don't know. You can choose like your favorite or I don't know, most special. What you miss the most?
What's your favorite?
You
Okay, my favorite is probably the laddie, and that's like stuffed grape leaves. Like it's rice and like stuffed grape leaves, and then we have like with lamb chops and a lot of like different and like kusa. I don't know, is kusa eggplant?
Squash.
Squash.
Zucchini.
Yeah, zucchini. So it's also stuffed zucchini. It tastes better than it sounds, I promise you. And yeah, that's my personal favorite. And it's like on a big, like circular, what is it called? Platter. Yeah.
What was the question again? Is it like
Favorite food?
like favorite Ramadan food or just favorite?
Ramadan food.
So for me, it's this Syrian dish called shish barak. It's basically like dumplings cooked in like this
Yogurt soup.
Yogurt, yeah.
yeah, this yogurt soup. I was gonna say fermented milk, and I was like, wait, that does not sound good, but I promise.
Yeah, it sounds better.
I promise it's delicious. But yeah, that's my personal favorite. My mom usually rolls it out around the time of Ramadan, especially since like every weekend we have 2 like community dinners and back home, and my mom usually rolls that out like at least once.
This is technically, well, this is Desi food, so it's not really like Arab culture, but my mom would make like butter chicken, which is like my favorite.
Also sambusa, like the triangular things. We eat that with like the soup. Usually we break our fast with like a date. I don't like dates, so I don't break my fast with a date, but like
How can you not like dates?
I
No,
don't.
let's have some disagreements here. I'm just kidding.
I don't like it, but yeah, there's also like I also don't like this, but gaig, it's like flour with date. It's like kind of like a date cookie.
And
A
like
date cookie.
every like mom makes it. Every
Yeah.
Arab mom, like the first
Yeah.
day,
Yeah.
they make.
We for specifically with my mom, she usually makes those she calls it mahmoud. She usually makes it at the end of Ramadan, and then like they usually stay like in the cabinet to like at least half the year because of how much she makes.
Yeah.
What about you, Dr. Izzat? What's your favorite? Like,
I
Ramadan
think
food?
everything you all talked about, definitely the Diwali, the grape leaves, that's more of a thing. But we're more of a grilling family, but also soups. Usually, like you said, we break the fast with soup and dates. But if you haven't tried dates, which I noticed many people in the US have not, there is actually a brand that I approve of out of nowhere at Kroger. So I always have it in my place, and I pretty much daily bring some to my office because I eat dates daily. And if you want to try them, just let me know, and I'll get you through that marvelous experience. Yeah, and then I guess I really pretty much eat everything. But I think it's more what we call sinige, which is basically a lot of ground beef or lamb in different sauces, and we go for like different varieties. The same way I know you make curries in all types of varieties. Dr. Turner and I always talk about food, so you know. Anyway, but yeah, and then desserts. There's katayef, which is a major one. That's more like pancakes that are folded and stuffed. We can stuff them with everything, dipped in sugar syrup. It sounds like a lot, but it's beautiful. And then the other one that we eat a lot of in Palestine, I guess, is knafe, which is a pastry cheese dessert. It can, most of the time, it can have multiple colors, but it's for some reason it takes a red or orange-ish kind of like food coloring. And I learned that so many times. That was one of my things to actually master myself. So if anyone wants to try it, just let me know and I'll make it for you. So yeah.
Can I have a quick comment? So I'm Sri Lankan. I come from a multicultural, multi-ethnic background. So I'm not Muslim, but a big shout out to the Muslim aunties, like our neighbors, who gave us food during Ramadan. So in Sri Lanka, there's this like special. There's a dessert. It's a coconut milk flan, which also has palm sugar in it. And whenever like I think about Ramadan, I immediately think about these like those desserts that we would always get during Ramadan, and also biryani. So biryani is like a big, we Sri Lankans love to eat biryani, but like biryani is like really special during Ramadan. So the Muslim community makes biryani, and also the dessert, which is called watala pang, and they share it with the community, so it builds community. And we also make savory kunafa. We make a savory version of that. So
No.
which is something which does happen back there, and it does taste good, but it's very different from the sweet one. So I just wanted to like a big shout out to the aunties who.
Aunties, I think, across all cultures are always doing a great job. We love our aunties.
Yeah. As a non-Muslim, do you think it's appropriate to participate in Ramadan, and especially like with what's going on in Palestine? Do you think it'd be a good way to like show solidarity? And like, how would you go about doing that as a non-Muslim?
Yeah, so
Absolutely.
yeah, I mean, my friends, I have a lot of friends. I have a lot of friends that fast, and they're not Muslim, and they're not Arab, and they fast just to like, you know, eat with us or like be in solidarity with us. But like you said, like especially with what's going on right now, a lot of people, a lot of kids are put in that position right now where they don't have food, where they don't have water or clean water at that. And so, yeah, there is no offensive, no problem. You guys want to add on to that? Anybody?
Yeah. One of my friends who's actually, I think, on the Zoom wants to participate in like all of Ramadan. So yeah, feel free.
Is there like a way, are there certain prayers that you would recommend, or like ways to do it, I guess, appropriately, you know, but also encompassing all aspects of it, you know?
Yeah. So like, as if you just like want to participate in like the actual just like fasting part, I would say, you know, just is it dawn till dusk? Is that the technical right term? Okay, dawn till dusk. But like as Muslims, you do have to pray all 5 prayers to like for your fast to actually count. But again, like just for like the fun of fasting.
Yeah, whatever you feel comfortable with. Like this is not like, this is whatever you feel comfortable with, however you want to show solidarity. Whether that's by maybe it's just by not drinking water. Maybe you still want to eat, but maybe you just want to not drink water, or the other way around, like stay hydrated, but don't eat food or something like that. However you feel like you can show support and solidarity, whatever you're comfortable with.
Also, you can, at least in the logistical aspect of things, there is a table of prayer times. And usually the start of the fasting, which is the dawn prayer, you can follow that exact hour. Usually it's literally detailed to the minutes. It could be, for instance, 4 a.m., 53 minutes. That would be the time where you actually start fasting. So in terms of knowing when to start, and when to stop, that's very easy. You can just go and Google that. It's really not a problem. As to the prayers point that was mentioned here, I think as a non-Muslim, you can do as many as you can, but also that's something that I don't know if I'm correct, feel free to correct me, but if you're busy during the way, some people actually merge some of the prayers together. So for instance, we have the noon or afternoon prayer and then the afternoon prayer. I know that at least where I grew up, people used to be able, like if they're at work all day and whatnot, they don't have the time to pray at work, they actually merge it together. And that I think would count under some circumstances that you don't actually have to make yourself available throughout the day at the exact same time of these prayers. So, and I think in general, as long as it's for solidarity, that's great. As long as we're just more mindful of, doing it respectfully, engaging about it in a way that it doesn't make it just like, oh, I'm doing this in a trendy, fun, kind of appropriating way. It's more of from a genuine place to like just kind of feel a connection with the people who are doing that. I think it's wonderful.
Yeah, like, I love it when my friends fast. Like it's like kind of like a little challenge for them because I mean for us we're used to it at this point. I mean I'm speaking for myself, but I think all of us are kind of used to it, especially if you've done it year after year after year. And it is hard in the beginning. Like I'm not gonna lie, the first day is a little. I get thirsty. I don't get hungry, but that's also because I don't eat. Like in regular days, I don't even eat until maybe like 5 p.m. anyways. So like it's not really a big adjustment for me other than the water. But I really do like. I find it like fun and like when my friends fast with me and when Dr. Ezek was talking about like combining prayers. If you're traveling, you don't have to fast. Like there's a minimum miles that you reach. I don't know what that number is.
I think it's 81.
81.
I don't know where the one is added and why it's there, but that's what I read.
Yeah. Around 80.
It's 81 kilometers actually, not miles. My bad.
Kilometers. Yeah.
The whole mile culture is all is weird. Just let's be clear.
So like you can break your fast if you're traveling or you're on an airplane. Also, I've heard that if it's like raining, you can combine prayers, or if you're traveling, you can also combine prayers. But yeah, that was just a quick clarification.
Also, does the Muslim Student Association have like social media or a website or anything for people to get involved or like to know about?
No.
I'll make one.
Yeah, yeah, we don't. But on that note, we are gonna have Fastathon, March 28th on Thursday. We have the flyer. We're just gonna put it out soon. It's gonna be March 28th. It's on a Thursday. And it's where we encourage everybody to fast for that day. And we're all gonna break our fast together with like Arab Bessie food. And yeah, it's just gonna be like a fun, educational time. In Warsaw. Yes.
The food is really good.
And the food is like amazing. Yeah. We also all cool.
Well, let's thank the Muslim Student Association. And then a couple announcements next Monday, March 11th. We're gonna have